My friends, the romantic era of crime in Brazil is set to end at a specific date and time. What you're going to hear and analyze with me today is no longer empty political speech, and even less of those pretty PDFs that get shelved in Brasilia by security theorists who walk the streets with rifle-armed escorts. We are facing an architectural blueprint that marks the end of the beer-drinking era and the beginning of the dark and direct era of fighting narco-terrorism. And pay close attention.
Today, right now, while you watch this video in the comfort of your home, between 50 and 60 million Brazilians live under the dictatorial, armed, and sadistic rule of criminal factions.
That's more than the entire population of many European countries. It's an entire nation being held hostage and silenced within its own country. And what I'm bringing here is the government plan of Flavio and Bolsonaro, what I'm calling the Bukele plan. And that's what we're going to dive into now, bringing a central thesis that violently changes the balance of power in the streets. The thesis is that the Brazilian state doesn't just need to buy more police cars or change the caliber of ammunition. The state needs to apply what I call the break from captivity. This is our compass for analysis. There is zero tolerance. The same relentless and controversial doctrine that shattered the dominance of gangs in El Salvador and shocked human rights organizations. It has just been translated and adapted to Brazil's hot streets. The message of the text is blunt and literal. A criminal with a rifle in hand is no longer treated as a misunderstood victim of the capitalist social system.
A criminal with a rifle in hand is a target to be taken down. The state has retreated for decades.
But the plan now is to break the backbone of the parallel power structure and reclaim the sovereignty that was stolen from the taxpayer. But first, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.
Leave your like on the video because it takes work to bring this here. And for the break from captivity to actually happen and not just become a newspaper headline, it's not enough to just change your tone of voice on the campaign stage.
It's necessary to change the legal framework and cut off the financial oxygen of those who fund the chaos.
The first and most devastating foundation of this new shock doctrine lies in the official and legal reclassification of the enemy.
Look at the level of change that's on the table. The First Capital Command, the notorious PCC, the militias, and the Red Command will no longer be tried in court as mere local criminal associations or ordinary drug trafficking groups.
The proposal requires Brazil to follow the heavy designation made by the United States Department of State and formally declare them under the Brazilian anti-terrorism law as narco-terrorist organizations.
My friends, this won't be talked about on Globo's Luciano Huck program or on Fantastico, but we need to spell out exactly what the impact is. What is the real difference between calling a drug dealer a criminal or a terrorist? If the government treats them as common criminals, the factions use billions of reais in cash to hire the biggest law firms in the country. They endlessly appeal to the higher courts, and they use the pathetic slowness of the civil and penal codes to their advantage. They laugh at justice. But if the state starts officially treating them as terrorists, the rules of the game are turned upside down and their nightmare begins. Financial strangulation becomes a matter of national security. The freezing of assets no longer has to wait for the goodwill or courage of a state judge threatened with death. The confiscation of assets, cryptocurrencies, shell companies, and nominees now comes under immediate federal action, breaking the billion-dollar logistical backbone that connects the favelas of Rio de Janeiro to the international river routes of the Amazon. Treating organized crime as terrorism is the absolute legal key for the armed forces to change their rules of engagement in the field and start using the full weight of wartime powers against the leaders who previously felt untouchable.
And if you've made it this far, it's because this video needs to reach millions of Brazilians. That's why you can directly sponsor this episode using the super like the like button. Thanks, it's right down there. Or even faster and easier, use the information that's appearing on your screen, including the QR code that's available.
Like I said, it's hard work to make this, and it's tough to break through the bubble. But with the strength of our community that keeps growing, we'll get there.
Now, if the law is going to change with brute force in the carpeted offices of Brasilia, we need to see how that impact lands on the street and hurts people.
Close your eyes for a moment and come down with me. Now, to the visceral reality of a resident of Bangu in the west zone of Rio de Janeiro. We're not talking about a remote favela on top of an isolated hill with no infrastructure. We're talking about a lower middle class neighborhood, flat, with paved streets, buildings, bakeries, traffic, and schools.
A place where the honest citizen, a hard-working family man, wakes up today knowing he has to set aside part of his hard-earned salary to pay an illegal extortion fee to the militia or to drug traffickers.
Feel the humiliation of this father. If he doesn't pay this invisible fee, his household trash isn't collected, the van doesn't go down his street, homeless people are strategically dumped on his sidewalk to destroy the peace of his business, or
in the worst case scenario, a dark car drives by his child's school to send a message. This is the fear tax, the human degradation that the system ignored.
And it's happening in Brazil right now while you're watching this video. The plan to reclaim the territory focuses exactly on shattering this humiliation. It's not about carrying out a cinematic operation in the morning with the deafening noise of police helicopters. Seizing 20 rusty rifles, giving a press conference on television at 5 p.m. and leaving at the end of the day, abandoning the residents to the retaliation of the criminals.
Real recovery requires the permanent, overwhelming, and militarized reoccupation of the territory by the state,
Annihilating what they call the community shield. But why has the Brazilian state retreated, cowered, and accepted this defeat until now? Where did the public security apparatus break down and allow criminals to take over entire blocks? The answer isn't the lack of weapons. The answer is on the next page of the plan, and it reveals the perverse incentive of our own legislation. My friends, the exact turning point of this urban war, the artery through which crime bleeds Brazilian society every day. It's the bizarre and almost religious protection that our judiciary grants to those deemed not criminally liable. Look at the geography of the South Zone of Rio de Janeiro. Pay attention to the Cantagalo and Pavãozinho complex. Gigantic hills squeezed exactly between the billionaire wealth of the Copacabana and Ipanema neighborhoods. Today, the armed leader of the criminal faction doesn't come down the hill with a rifle to steal cell phones on the streets. Is he the CEO of crime? He recruits, trains, and arms teenagers who are 15, 16, or 17 years old because he knows perfectly well that the laws designed by suit-wearing theorists have created the perfect shield for crime. Oh, he's reached a point of legal insanity where a minor commits robbery and murder, shoots someone in the head over a watch, or leads a brutal mass robbery on the beach. With just 2 hours left before turning 18, what happens? He is subjected to a juvenile corrective measure, often in institutions that have no security at all. And months later, when he turns 18, his criminal record is spotless. He is a first-time offender in the eyes of the law. Organized crime doesn't hire these minors out of charity or pity.
They hire them because the law forces the state to treat teenage killers who know very well how to pull the trigger as if they were helpless children stealing apples.
The proposal presented implements this break from captivity directly in the penal code, reducing the age of criminal responsibility from 18 to 16 in general, and it goes much further. It establishes adult punishment for youths from exactly 14 years old who have committed crimes classified as serious, heinous crimes, rape, torture, cruel murders, and association with drug trafficking. Flavio Bolsonaro's strategic goal here is not simply to fill more prisons for sport or sadism. The tactical goal is to create a brutal and immediate deterrent at the base of the criminal pyramid. When the 15-year-old lured by easy money realizes that the judge's pen will come down on his head, with the irreversible force of a 30-year sentence served in close custody without pardon, the factions instantly lose their infantry, invisible and disposable. The source of free and unpunishable labor for narco-terrorism dries up. And if you think that the security problem in Brazil is just the age of the recruited labor in the hills of Rio, wait until you see what the government plan has in store for the real uncontrolled drain through which war and rifles enter our country. Our abandoned borders, The plan requires the creation of a national border system with elite troops from the armed forces, using US-style military drone technology and integrated intelligence with neighboring countries through the Shield of the Americas.
It's literally turning imaginary lines into walls of action.
And where are all these new convicts captured on the streets and at the borders going to be sent? This is exactly where the tension of the project skyrockets and Brazil comes face to face, without mincing words, with El Salvador's method. We need to bravely confront the supreme legal thesis that has sunk our penal system.
The Supreme Federal Court validated a doctrine imported from Europe called the unconstitutional state of affairs.
In practical terms, if the prison is overcrowded, if the cell doesn't have enough sunlight, or if the hygiene conditions don't meet human rights standards. The progressive judiciary solution is to open the prison doors and send the dangerous criminal back to the streets right around your family. The ideology of mass decarceration is what has fueled the power of the gangs in recent years. They release the criminal works for the gang works for the politicians, and the politicians use the money to get themselves endlessly elected and to elect their supporters. Do you see the pattern of what happens in Brazil and Latin America? The government plan throws cold water on this narrative and proposes a technical knockout of the system. The promise is the colossal, gigantic, and accelerated construction of 500,000 new spots in the Brazilian prison system within 4 years. This includes the construction of 5 federal prison complexes with absolute maximum security, designed and inspired from end to end by the relentless isolation model of Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele. Let me break down the direct impact so you can understand the weight of this.
Today, in Brazil, the narco-terrorist leadership of the Comando Vermelho, or the PCC, finds it much safer, more luxurious, and more profitable to run their blood empire from inside a cell. Their enemies can't reach them.
He is protected by high walls and state guards against rival faction shooters 24 hours a day. He enjoys the latest smartphones, fast internet, televisions, and the sacred and unquestionable right to conjugal visits, where execution orders are freely given. The new plan cuts off the internet cable and the privilege at its root. Prison will no longer be a co-working space for crime with guaranteed state immunity. Prison will be the abyss of oblivion, the absolute end of calling the shots from behind bars. The cutting of privileges and the replacement of conjugal visits with relentless audiovisual monitoring represent the sensory and logistical isolation of criminal leaders.
It's the literal cutting off of the serpent's head.
It's forcing crime into bankruptcy by cutting off communication. And don't forget, this has just made El Salvador one of the safest places in the world to live. But the war has 2 fronts. To isolate those who have already been caught, tried, and convicted, you first need to have the technological capability to track, find, and capture those who are hiding in the shadows of society. And here we enter a deep moral dilemma called the great trade-off of real life and geopolitics. The project champions the Brazilian wall, a massive Orwellian and relentless facial recognition system throughout the entire national territory. The idea is to spread and expand technology programs like Smart SAN, and the Murala Paulista, interconnecting all public cameras from streets, squares, and highways directly to federal criminal databases and outstanding arrest warrants. Have you ever thought about a system like this in the hands of Alexandre de Moraes to track critics in Brazil? My friends, but this throws us straight and without a parachute into the painful warning from the intellectual giant of economics, Thomas Sowell: security versus freedom. Security versus freedom. Security is cruel and unavoidable. To have clean and safe streets like those in a developed Asian nation or an Arab emirate, where you can leave your wallet on the cafe table and go to the bathroom, you inevitably have to give up your individual privacy,
granting the government a frightening ability to monitor your every step, every route, and every routine.
It's bizarre and dangerous power if it falls into the hands of a surveillance state with dictatorial tendencies like Brazil. Especially when the current government has already shown an appetite for hunting political opponents through geolocation. However, the big pragmatic contradiction that the Brazilian mugged on the street has to swallow is that in a devastated country, highly dangerous criminals are released at the first stroke of a pre-trial judge's pen. And law-abiding citizens live locked up, sweating behind bars in their own homes. Do the cameras on the corners scare those who respect the law more, or those who steal cell phones and burn buses? And the punishment for this everyday theft is also going to change in a brutal way. The disgusting romanticization of so-called hunger-driven crime is over. The logic that stealing to have a beer is acceptable no longer has a place. The new doctrine states that if an individual steals or buys a stolen cell phone, fueling the crime of receiving stolen goods, which fuels murders in the streets, his initial sentence will be mandatorily quadrupled by the judge, and he immediately loses the legal right to move to a less restrictive prison regime, going straight into closed prison. The same iron hand applies to heinous crimes, which will now require 100% of the sentence to be served in the strictest and harshest regime. An American serial killer arrested in the 70s will die in prison. In Brazil, with the current laws, he gets a temporary release for Mother's Day and never comes back. The plan says this will end for good. Look at the case of the girl who killed her parents and is now becoming a television celebrity, getting her own series and movie.
My friends, and finally the conservative agenda that drives the left into despair. Chemical castration for pedophiles, child abusers, and rapists.
It goes back before Congress, making it clear in criminal law that the body of the innocent victim is not and will never be territory for the psychosocial rehabilitation of criminals. The exact moment has come to show which side you are on and how your brain processed this elite analysis. Go down to the comments right now and type our 2 keywords so we can finally hack the algorithm.
Right FIM do Cativeiro and Modelo Bukele. FIM do Cativeiro and Modelo Bukele. Repeat with me in the comments. My friends, today we broke down the technical design, the legal architecture, and the will to power behind the wartime model for retaking control that challenges the status quo of organized crime. This plan, designed and presented, is not just a simple list of campaign promises to please outraged voters. It is the definitive and precise roadmap for breaking free from captivity.
The technological shielding at the porous borders. The severe neutralization of underage foot soldiers who cannot be prosecuted, the absolute and inhuman isolation of PCC and Red Command leaders in concrete dungeons in the Bukele-Style,
and the extreme technological surveillance on the streets forms the backbone of a state that has finally decided to stop apologizing for existing and for enforcing the monopoly on legal violence. In the end,
the projection of our future is not solely in the hands of politicians in suits. It lies at the breaking point of the taxpayers' silent suffering. Brazil is, at this historic moment, facing a brutal and irreversible crossroads, a civilizational war. Or we embrace the harshness of an unforgiving punitive model, running the risk and paying the civilizational price of living under 24-hour surveillance by government cameras so that we can finally become the most structurally secure and prosperous nation in Latin America. Or, out of moral cowardice, will we continue as chronic and bloody hostages of narco-terrorists mourning our dead on the asphalt?
While cloistered theorists discuss in comfortable classrooms the inalienable human rights of those who fire on the police with rifles.
The era of suicidal leniency toward organized crime has already exacted its billion-dollar price in lives and development. The iron verdict does not belong to the floor of the federal Senate. It belongs strictly to your intellectual ability to see the machinery behind the situation. Naivety exacts a price that nations cannot afford to pay. Ignorance costs you your own freedom. Prepare your mind. Protection is strategic. And it is in this scenario that we make a very important decision, and you are part of it.
We created our backup channel.
If they take this channel down for saying what we said here today, we already have a new way to contact you. It's called Blinde a Sua Mente. Blinde a Sua Mente is its name, and you can subscribe through the link in the description and in the pinned comment, or by pointing your phone now at the QR code, which will even take you directly to the subscribe button. Make sure the bell is turned on. Make sure you are subscribed. If this channel gets deleted, we are there. And if plan A and B fail, we already have plan C. And pay attention to what I'm going to tell you now. Because if you think that the old traditional media will reveal the real details of this power struggle and what goes on behind the scenes of the narco-terrorist factions, you are still being manipulated. The system censors the geopolitical X-ray to keep society uninformed. That's exactly why we activated our exclusive platform, operated in a completely censorship-free environment. From now on, you stop being a passive target and come down to our intelligence bunker. Inside, you join more than 3,000 analysts who fund the truth here and study the map of what really happens in the shadows of Brazil. Take tactical control of your mind. Point your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen or access it through the link in the description and in the first pinned comment. Join the base. The war has already started and I'm waiting for you there. When nothing else works, we'll meet in our intelligence bunker.
My friends, in every video, I recommend a fantastic series for you to follow that gives context to this hybrid war we're fighting in this world.
For that, you can check out our recommendations on our channel with tips on series and movies. A complete curation, no woke culture, no whining. You won't waste any more time. Just go to our channel. Pick the title we've already selected for you in advance, knowing it won't be total garbage. Put it on your streaming service and just enjoy it with your family. And there's a fantastic series that I'm recommending in every video, which is Lioness. Why, guys? Because it seems like the Trump administration really stirred things up and showing the world how this hybrid war works against the cartels, against narco-terrorism, against the PCC and the Red Command, against China, against Russia, against North Korea and Iran. It's awesome. Fantastic. So check it out. The link is in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card. It will appear right here on the screen. Now, subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell. Leave a like on the video because it takes a lot of work to make.
Blindi a sua mente, yes, blindi a sua mente. And if this video was important to you, you can support it using the details on your screen right now.
Or with super thanks, with super like, or super sticker.
Be a part of it. Be an active part of our work. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you next time. See you then.